Tonight, we're diving deep into why the original Pokémon TV show was so special. But before we begin our journey into Pokémon lore, I want to take a moment to welcome you. Whether this is your first night here, or you've made stellar sleep part of your nightly routine. For those of you who've been joining us consistently, I want to thank you for being such an integral part of our channel. Be sure to share this video with someone you know who loves Pokémon. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment day 1. I'll be tracking our progress right alongside you. Now let's get back to the video. Close your eyes for a moment and travel back to a time when the world felt infinitely larger than it does today. Imagine a Saturday morning, the air still cool and quiet, the sunlight just beginning to stretch across the carpet of your childhood living room. There is a specific sound that defines this memory. It is the hum of a heavy glass television set warming up, a static crackle that feels like a secret invitation. Then, a burst of colour hits the screen. A bolt of lightning flashes. A catchy, driving anthem begins to play. And suddenly, you're no longer sitting in your house. You're standing at the edge of a vast, untamed frontier, where the grass grows tall and every rustle in the bushes promises a new friend or a formidable challenge. This was the dawn of the Pokémon phenomenon, a moment in cultural history that did more than just sell toys or trading cards. It captured the collective imagination of an entire generation and refused to let go. But why did it work so well? Why, out of all the cartoons and franchises that competed for our attention in the late 1990s, did this story about a boy from Pallet Town and his stubborn yellow mouse become the definitive mythology of our youth? We often look back at our favourite childhood shows through a lens of simple nostalgia, dismissing our attachment as nothing more than a longing for a simpler time. But with the original Pokémon series, specifically the Indigo League era, there was something much deeper at work. This was not just a 22-minute commercial. It was a masterclass in world building that tapped into primal human desires for discovery, companionship, and the pursuit of mastery. It offered a vision of a world where children were granted an extraordinary level of agency, where the bond between a human and a creature was the most powerful force in existence, and where the journey mattered infinitely more than the destination. The stakes felt real because the world felt lived in. It was a place where legendary birds controlled the weather, where ghosts haunted abandoned towers, and where a 10-year-old could walk into the wilderness with nothing but a backpack and a dream to find out who they truly were. The mystery of Pokémon's enduring magic lies in the strange, almost lightning-in-a-bottle chemistry of its creation. It was a bridge between Eastern and Western sensibilities, blending the Shinto-inspired reverence for nature and spirits with the classic Western hero's journey. It asked us to consider a world where technology and nature lived in a delicate, beautiful balance. Think about the Pokédex, that little red device that served as both an encyclopedia and a compass. It represented the infinite potential of knowledge. Think about the Pokéball, a marvel of miniaturization that suggested even the most powerful forces of nature could be befriended and carried close to the heart. There was an inherent mystery to the landscape of Kanto. Every cave was a dark labyrinth waiting to be mapped. Every forest was a cathedral of hidden life. We weren't just watching Ash Ketchum try to win badges. We were exploring the limits of a universe that seemed to have no end. As we prepare to dive deep into the lore and the legacy of this foundational era, we have to ask ourselves what we were really looking for when we tuned in every week. Was it the thrill of the battle? Was it the desire to collect them all? Or was it something more soulful? Perhaps it was the way the show handled failure. Ash didn't always win. In fact, in the beginning, he was often outmatched, clumsy, and naive. But the show taught us that greatness isn't found in perfection, but in the willingness to get back up, to learn from your Pokémon, and to treat every living thing with respect. It was a show about the ethics of power and the beauty of persistence. It created a common language that millions of children across the globe spoke fluently, a shared dream of a world where we could all be champions if we only had the courage to step out the front door. Tonight, we are going to return to that world. We are going to peel back the layers of the Kanto region, from the quiet streets of Pallet Town to the high-stakes arena of the Indigo Plateau. We will look at the hidden histories of the original 151 creatures, the complex dynamics of the characters who shaped our childhoods, and the philosophical underpinnings that made this show a cultural cornerstone. This is a journey designed to soothe the mind and spark the imagination, a slow walk through the tall grass of memory. We will explore the shadows of the Viridian Forest, the salty breeze of Cinnabar Island, and the neon glow of Celadon City. We will remember the weight of a heavy backpack and the feeling of a first partner's loyalty. So, settle in, let the worries of the modern world fade away, and prepare to rediscover why this story remains so special. The journey is about to begin, and the tall grass is waiting. In the sleepy suburbs of Machida, a stone's throw from Tokyo's bustling heart, a boy named Satoshi Tajiri discovered his first true passion amid the rustle of leaves and the flicker of sunlight through dense foliage. It was the early 1970s, and rural pockets still clung to the edges of urban sprawl, where concrete gave way to wild tangles of weeds and overgrown lots perfect for a child's endless exploration. Satoshi, scrawny and wide-eyed, armed himself with nothing more than a net fashioned from sticks and old mesh, prowling these forgotten green spaces from dawn until the streetlights hummed to life. Beetles became his world. Not just any insects, but the armoured giants of Japan's countryside. Massive stag beetles with jaws like curved antlers. Rhinoceros beetles that could lift their own weight 10 times over. Prize catches that gleamed like polished jewels under his flashlight at night. He'd spend hours pinning them carefully to corkboards as in his cramped bedroom, their legs splayed in eternal display, while the distant roar of commuter trains reminded him of the city creeping closer. Each find felt like a secret victory, a bond with nature's hidden warriors that no one else seemed to notice. His parents watched with a mix of bemusement and concern as their son vanished into the wilds, returning scratched and muddy, pockets bulging with live cargo destined for terrariums made from repurposed jars. But as the years ticked by and development bulldozed those precious hunting grounds into parking lots and high-rises, Satoshi's heart ached for what was slipping away. The streams dried up, the trees fell, and his solitary hunts grew rarer, forcing him to travel farther by train to rural Michi no Eki rest stops or distant mountains where elders still swapped stories of legendary bugs. He traded specimens with fellow enthusiasts through classified ads in niche magazines, shipping them in padded boxes that crisscrossed the archipelago like whispers of a fading era. This obsession wasn't mere play. It was a quiet rebellion against the modernization swallowing Japan's wild soul, a way to capture and preserve the untamed before it vanished forever. By his teens, Satoshi had collected over 4,000 specimens. His room, a living museum of chitin and iridescence. Yet solitude defined it all. Hours alone with his prizes, sketching their forms in notebooks, dreaming up battles between rival species in his mind. No friends joined these expeditions. It was his private universe, intimate and isolating. That changed forever in 1989, when Nintendo unleashed the Game Boy, a pocket-sized marvel with a screen that glowed like a captured firefly. The true revolution hid in its link cable, a slender cord that snapped two devices together like symbiotic insects merging colonies. Suddenly Satoshi's vision crystallized. He poured his life's fixation into a game, Pokémon, where players roamed pixelated grass, hurling Pokeballs at digital creatures modelled after his beloved beetles, Pinsir with its crushing pincers, Heracross burrowing through virtual bark. But the genius lay in that cable. Friends could now trade rare finds, beam a Venusaur across the room in seconds, or pit their teams in head-to-head clashes that echoed the thrill of real beetle duels. What was once a lone wanderer's ritual exploded into a social frenzy. Kids huddled in schoolyards, libraries, even bullet trains, cables snaking between Game Boys like lifelines. Trading became an art. You'd haggle over a level 30 Charizard for hours, the anticipation building as the transfer bar crept forward, hearts pounding at the risk of a glitch erasing your prize. Battles turned playgrounds into arenas, cheers erupting as a critical hit landed, forging bonds deeper than words. Satoshi watched this unfold from his desk at Game Freak, the tiny studio he'd founded in a coffee shop, realizing his solitary passion had ignited a global phenomenon. Over 40 million Game Boys sold worldwide by the mid-90s, each cable a bridge from isolation to connection, transforming bug hunting's quiet thrill into a shared obsession. This spark carried into 1997, when the Pokémon games, those sprawling RPG epics with 84-hour quests, intricate type matchups, and labyrinthine evolutions, faced their boldest leap yet. Creatures Inc., tasked by Nintendo, gambled everything on distilling that complexity into a children's morning cartoon. Executives sweated over the math. Could hyper-detailed lore about fossil revivals and legendary birds hook 6-year-olds at 7 a.m. before rice balls and school bags? The original games demanded strategy, grinding levels in shadowy caves, mastering weaknesses like fire beating grass in razor-sharp precision. Translating that to animation risked diluting the soul, turning epic trainers into goofy sidekicks, profound evolutions into slapstick gags. Yet, they bet big. The pilot episode dropped Ash Ketchum into Pallet Town, his starter Pikachu zapping authority figures in a burst of yellow defiance, while Team Rocket's blundering schemes nodded to the game's villains. Without the gore, voice actors poured life into Pikachu's untranslatable Pika-Pee, a cry that echoed real animal calls Satoshi had mimicked in his youth. Ratings soared, but the stakes loomed. One flop, and the franchise crumbles before Red and Blue even launch in the West. Instead, it hooked a generation, blending RPG depth with serialized adventures that mirrored the Link cable's magic. Solitary viewings turned communal, kids reciting evolutions at recess like sacred chants. That gamble paid off in ways no one predicted, setting the stage for an aesthetic that defined an era, one we'll uncover in Chapter 2, the Indigo League aesthetic, where every cell-shaded badge and misty gym pulses with irreplaceable magic. That solitary hunt for insects in Tokyo's fading suburbs, sparked into shared battles through the Game Boy's glowing Link cable, found its perfect canvas in the Indigo League's art. What emerged wasn't just pixels on a screen, but a watercolour dreamscape, hand-brushed with delicate washes of colour that blurred the edges of reality itself. Every sprite in those original games carried the faint tremor of a real artist's stroke, as if Game Freak's team had dipped their brushes into the misty air of Kanto's wilds and pulled out living forms. You can almost feel the paper's subtle texture beneath those sprites, the way cell-shaded outlines softened into gradients of pale blue skies bleeding into verdant greens. This wasn't the crisp, vector-sharp style that would dominate later Pokémon worlds. No, Kanto's aesthetic evoked old Japanese sumi paintings, where ink fades into wet paper, leaving Pokémon like Bulbasaur half emerging from shadow, their bulbous backs glistening with implied dew, Pikachu's cheeks puffed with a rosy flush that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, ears wilting just so under imagined rain. It was intimate, imperfect, born from the constraints of the Game Boy's monochrome roots, but elevated by colour palettes that whispered rather than shouted. Consider the palette choices alone. They anchored Kanto in a pre-digital haze, Saffron City's towering skyscrapers gleamed in buttery yellows and stark whites, but even there, the watercolour softened their modernity, turning concrete into something approachable, almost nostalgic. Walk your character through those streets, and the backgrounds dissolve at the seams, buildings fading into a hazy horizon that hints at the chaos beyond. It's as if the artists channeled Tajiri's own childhood rambles, where urban sprawl met untamed thickets, creating a visual language that made every route feel like a personal memory etched in fading ink. And then the wilderness calls. Step off the paved paths into Viridian Forest, and the atmosphere shifts like a sudden fog rolling in. The bright veneer of cities gives way to an eerie, untamed sprawl where colours desaturate into murky olives and bruised purples. Caterpie dangles from branches rendered in translucent greens, their bodies half transparent as if woven from leaves themselves, swaying in a breeze you swear you can hear through the speakers. The screen darkens, sprites gaining weight in the gloom, Pidgey perched on boughs that twist like veins, eyes glinting with feral promise. This wasn't sanitized adventure, it was a deliberate plunge into the primal, where the watercolor style amplified the unease, blending Pokémon into their habitats until you questioned where the creature ended and the wild began. That shift wasn't accidental. Kanto's designers drew from the Japanese countryside Tajiri knew, those pockets of wilderness encroaching on post-war suburbs, where fireflies danced in humid nights and beetles burrowed underfoot. In the games, it manifests as a rhythmic tension. The electric hum of Cerulean City's cascading gym, all vibrant aquas and polished tiles, contrasting the rock tunnel's pitch-black void, illuminated only by flashlight beams that catch the shimmer of Geodude's craggy hide. The wilderness feels alive, hostile, indifferent. Zubat swarms emerge from watercolour caverns streaked with mineral veins. Their wings a blur of indigo that merges with the stone. You tread carefully, because here, the art style turns the world against you, every faded edge hiding peril. This aesthetic peaked in the anime's Indigo League episodes, where the watercolour influence seeped into animation cells. Ash's journey mirrors that pivot. Pallet Town's sunny fields, painted in warm ochres, yield to the shadowy expanse of Route 1, where Rattata skitter through tall grass depicted with feathery strokes. The OST underscores it, flutes warbling over city bustle, then dissonant strings in the wilds, but the visuals do the heavy lifting, making Kanto feel vast, unknowable. Misty's gym sparkles like a jewel box, yet venture to Mampt Moon, and the palette drains to ashen greys, Clefairy's pink glow, a defiant spark in the murk. What grounded this all were the original 151 Pokémon themselves, designs rooted so deeply in biology that they breathed like real creatures from Earth's hidden corners. Unlike the fantastical evolutions of later generations, these felt plucked from field guides. Pikachu, a chimeric rodent echoing spiny mice and electric eels, its fur textured with individual strands you could count. Charizard's wings span like a pterosaur's, leathery membranes veined for flight physics that actually make sense in a storm. Venusaur lumbers with the mass of a herbivorous dinosaur, its back bulb a symbiotic plant massaging spores into soil, evoking real parasitic fungi. Take the insect line. Butterfree's wings iridesce like morpho butterflies, scales scattering light in ways that mimic actual diffraction, not magic. Beedrill's stingers drip with plausible venom sacs, abdomens segmented like hornets primed to strike. Game Freak consulted entomologists, blending Tajiri's bug obsession with vertebrate anatomy. Arbok's hood flares with cobra precision, patterns hypnotic as a real serpent's threat display. Even legendaries like Mewtwo carry scars of lab-born mutation, its tail a whipcord of sinew, psychic aura rippling like distorted heat haze over fur. This biological fidelity made encounters visceral, Squirtle's shell gleams with keratin plates retractable like a box turtle's. Water jets propelled by plausible musculature. The wilds weren't arcades, they were ecosystems. Pincer clamps with mantis shrimp force, crushing berries that stain the ground in watercolour splatters. Later gens veered mythical, fairy types defying physics, but Kanto's roster demanded respect for nature's rules. Each Pokémon a plausible predator, prey, or parasite in that eerie wilderness. You felt it in battles too, a Pidgeot soaring on thermal updrafts rendered with feathered precision, talons raking like an eagle's. The art style's softness humanized them, blurring aggression into something poignant. Onyx coils through caves, segments grinding rock into dust, body a mosaic of mineral scales that flake realistically. It invited empathy, turning pixelated foes into beings with weight, history, hunger. As Ash presses onward, chasing badges through this watercolour-veiled world, his triumphs feel earned against such grounded odds. But what truly sets his path apart isn't the badges or beasts, it's the raw, unpolished heart driving him forward. Up next in Chapter 3, Ash Ketchum's Imperfect Heroism, where we uncover the flaws that made this 10-year-old kid the most compelling trainer you'll ever root for. Night after restless night. As those watercolour strokes bled from the sun-drenched streets of Pallet Town into the shadowy thickets of Route 1, you encounter the heart of Kanto's adventure. Ash Ketchum, a 10-year-old dreamer who stepped into that untamed world, not as a destined champion, but as a gloriously flawed kid whose path forward was littered with faceplants, narrow escapes, and a whole lot of blind luck. Ash arrives at Professor Oak's lab late, oversleeping his big day because he couldn't set an alarm right, and the standard starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, are already claimed by more punctual trainers. What's left? A Pikachu that's more feral attitude than loyal companion, zapping Ash on sight and treating him like an unwelcome pest. You see, the creators at OLM and Creatures Inc. made a deliberate pivot here, rejecting the tidy hero's journey template, where the protagonist bonds instantly with a plucky partner. No, they handed Ash rebellion on 4 yellow paws, forcing him to earn trust through trial after humiliating trial. Picture Ash trudging through Viridian Forest, Pikachu perched defiantly on his shoulder, refusing every Pokeball toss, every plea for help against bug-type swarms. That electric rodent doesn't just disobey, it embodies Ash's own raw, unpolished edges, mirroring a boy who's all bluster and no battle smarts yet. Early episodes hammer this home. Ash charges into his first gym battle against Brock with zero strategy, yelling commands at Pikachu who flat out ignores him, leading to a crushing defeat that leaves him bruised, bandaged, and begging for a rematch. Luck saves him then, a wild encounter pulling him back from the brink. But it's not skill, it's chance pure and infuriating. This pattern defines Ash's heroism from the jump. He loses the Indigo League badge quest not once, but spectacularly, fumbling 8 badges through overconfidence and botched tactics, only to scrape into the finals on technicalities and rival slip-ups. Remember the Orange Islands arc? Ash stumbles into victory, there less through mastery, and more through serendipity. Washing up on shores, befriending legendaries by accident, turning potential drownings into triumphs because a storm decided to play nice. Even his signature move, that over-the-top self-sacrifice shtick, relies on Pokémon pulling off miracles he couldn't plan. Fans romanticize his never-give-up spirit, but peel back the layers, and you find a protagonist who fails upward, time and again, his wins hinging on the plot's generous dice roll. Yet this imperfection was no accident. It was the secret sauce that made Ash relatable in a sea of pixel-perfect game avatars. Satoshi Tajiri himself drew from his bug-hunting days, where patience and persistence trumped raw talent, infusing Ash with that same gritty realism. You feel it in the quiet moments. After a loss, Ash slumped on a log by a campfire, Pikachu finally curling up beside him, not out of obedience, but quiet understanding. Those sparks of connection build slowly, episode by episode, turning defiance into devotion without erasing the messiness. Ash's early arrogance amplifies this arc, painting him as a cocky punk who boasts about becoming a Pokémon master before he's caught his second Pokémon. He mocks Misty for tagging along, dismisses Brock's advice as old man nonsense, struts into every wild encounter like he owns the forest. Episode 3, against Team Rocket's first botched ambush, Ash's hot-headed charge scatters Jessie, James, and Meowth not through genius, but sheer reckless momentum, Pikachu's thunderbolt amplified by his unyielding yell. But watch how that bravado crumbles. By the time he faces Latente Surge in Vermilion City, his over-reliance on Pikachu backfires spectacularly. The electric gym leaders Raichu overwhelming them until Ash learns humility, trading power for heart. That shift unfolds across dozens of episodes, a long-form masterclass in emotional growth. Arrogance gives way to empathy in the misty caves of Rock Tunnel, where Ash forgoes glory to nurse a lost Cubone back to health. It tempers in the foggy peaks of Cerulean Gym, forcing him to apologize to Misty after a prank gone wrong. You sense the maturation in his voice, softening from brash shouts to thoughtful strategies, all while Pikachu's loyalty cements as the emotional anchor. No montage rushes this. It's baked into the rhythm of travel. Those endless route walks where conversations with companions chip away at his ego, revealing a core of genuine passion beneath the bluster. By the league semi-finals, Ash's imperfect heroism peaks, not in a flawless sweep, but in a heartfelt upset against Richie, where overconfidence nearly dooms him again, only redeemed by Pikachu's sacrifice and a dash of narrative fortune. He doesn't win the trophy, doesn't claim the title, but in that loss you grasp why he endures. Ash isn't superhuman. He's you, fumbling through dreams with grit, luck, and friends who stick despite the shocks. This raw, unvarnished portrayal set Ash apart from shonen staples, grounding Kanto's watercolor wilds in a hero who grew through grit and glitches. And as his journey barrels toward Johto, that bond with Pikachu unravels threads to stranger puzzles, like the eerie glow of a certain GS ball waiting in Chapter 4. The mystery of the GS ball, where secrets from Oak's lab start to crack open worlds beyond badges and battles. Ash's triumphs, fragile as they were, always hinged on that electric bond with Pikachu, the starter who refused to play by the rules. Yet as his journey pushed beyond Kanto's familiar horizons into the sun-drenched Isles of Orange, something far stranger emerged from the shadows of Professor Oak's lab. A peculiar sphere, gleaming with the intertwined hues of gold and silver, was thrust into his hands. Not as a prize, but as a puzzle wrapped in enigma. Picture that moment in the crisp animation of episode 164. Ash stands there, Pikachu perched on his shoulder, still buzzing from battles against sea-swept gyms. Oak, ever the enigmatic mentor with his wild white mane and lab coat, speckled in data printouts, holds out this GS ball. Its surface shimmers like molten treasure, half gilded in warm yellow, half etched in cool lunar silver, the letters GS boldly embossed as if forged by some ancient Poke artisan. No ordinary Pokeball this. It doesn't wobble or click open like the rest. Oak explains it's a gift from the elite Pokémon celebs at the Orange League, a one-of-a-kind relic meant for delivery to Kurt, the eccentric craftsman, deep in Johto's azalea forest. Why? Oak doesn't say. He just urges Ash forward, into uncharted territory. That simple handoff ignited what would become the original Pokémon anime's most tantalizing loose end. Fans latched onto it immediately. The GS ball wasn't just cargo, it pulsed with promise. Whispers spread through playgrounds and early internet forums. What could dwell inside? A legendary straight from the whispers of gold and silver games, still shrouded in rumour back in 1999. The ball's journey became a thread pulling Ash toward Johto, but the real intrigue lay in its silence, its refusal to reveal itself. Fast forward mere weeks in showtime, and Ash reaches Kurt's woodland hut. Nestled amid rustling ilex forest leaves that seem to hush secrets of their own. The old man, with his soot-streaked glasses and apron dusted in sawdust from countless ball carvings, takes the GS ball reverently. He promises to investigate, but not before a glitchy anomaly flickers on screen. A faint silhouette inside, ethereal and winged, darting like a time-lost sprite. Celebi, the forest guardian, the mythic time traveller, teased in game leaks and collector circles. Kurt seals it away for study, and Ash presses on, but that image lingers, a ghostly afterimage burned into viewer memories. Behind the velvet curtain of production, the truth unravels even more poetically. The GS ball was no accident. It was the spearhead for a sprawling Celebi arc, meticulously plotted by the writers. Episode outlines from that era, unearthed in Japanese fan archives and director interviews, reveal a saga where Ash would chase temporal rifts, ally with Kurt's granddaughter, and confront poachers twisting Celebai's powers for chaos. Sound director Masafumi Mima later confessed in a 2005 panel that the team had storyboarded Celebai's full emergence, complete with warping forests and paradox battles, tying directly into Gold and Silver's Johto lore. But then, silence. The subplot evaporated after that single episode, the GS ball relegated to Oak's cold storage without ceremony. Why the abrupt burial? Timing, pure and ruthless. Gold and Silver's Japanese launch slipped from late 1999 to 1998, autumn. But global hype demanded restraint. No spoiling Celebi before Nintendo could capitalize. Then came the bombshell. Pokémon the Movie 2000, Miramax's fourth theatrical entry, snatched Celebi for its spotlight, debuting the legend in a feature-length epic of clashing eras and human greed. Creators like director Kunihiko Yuyama prioritized the silver screen's grandeur. Diluting it on TV felt like scattering pearls before the premiere. Scripts were shelved, animators reassigned to Meowth's latest blimp fiasco, and the GS ball became a phantom limb of the series. That abandonment didn't dim its glow, it amplified it. Fandom erupted into a frenzy of lore weaving that endures 2 decades later. Reddit threads dissect frame-by-frame shadows. Is that winged blur Celebi, or a sly nod to Mew? Tumblr theories posit the GS as a genetic stabilizer, fusing Gold and Silver mythos into a hybrid beast. DeviantArt explodes with fan art of Ash, cracking it open amid Johto ruins, unleashing ripples that rewrite his losses into destined paths. Even speedrunners joke about GS ball glitches in emulator lore, while podcasters like Joe Merrick on Pokémon Rewatchables call it the black hole of Pokémon mysteries, sucking in every loose canon thread, from Mewtwo's clones to Lugia's whirlpools. The ripple touched cosplay cons and fanfics alike, spawning alternate universes where the ball hatches not Celebi, but a Celebi-Mew fusion, or even Arceus's prototype egg. Japanese zines from the era brim with doujinshi depicting Kurt's final experiments gone awry, time loops ensnaring Team Rocket in eternal twerps chasing. It fueled the collective imagination because it mirrored Pokémon's core allure, the unknown frontier beyond your Pokédex. In a show that thrived on discovery, the GS ball dangled the ultimate unclaimed prize, a gold-silver tease that whispered of worlds half-glimpsed. You can still feel that pull today, scrolling through dusty VHS rips or 4K upscales on streaming. Oak's lab fridge, stuffed with forgotten balls, holds it still. Episode 273 flashes it briefly, a metallic wink amid holiday chaos. No resolution, no retcon, just eternal what-if. It trained a generation to embrace the unsolved, to theorize late into the night over pixelated enigmas. And as Ash's path winds deeper into Johto's tangled wilds, those bungling antagonists waiting in the wings turn failure into their finest art form. Up next, Chapter 5, Team Rocket and the Art of Failure, where every motto, chant and botched scheme reveals genius hidden in glorious defeat. As the shimmering promise of the GS ball faded into the shadows of abandoned plotlines, another force barreled onto the scene with explosive reliability. Team Rocket, hurtling through the sky in their rickety Meowth balloon, ready to snatch Pikachu and blast off once more. You could set your watch to it. Every few episodes, that familiar twang of a guitar strum kicked in, followed by Jessie's imperious shout, "Prepare for trouble," and James's flamboyant echo, "And make it double." These weren't just cartoonish foes, they were the heartbeat of disruption in Ash's world. Their failures as predictable as the sunrise over Pallet Town. Yet beneath the slapstick explosions and comically oversized mallets lay stories that tugged at the heartstrings in ways few children's shows dared. Take Jessie, the fiery redhead, with the voice of a scorned diva. Born into grinding poverty in the snow-swept streets of Snowpoint City, or so her fragmented tales suggested, she watched her mother, a promising rocket agent, vanish on a mission, leaving young Musashi, as she was then called, to fend for herself in a world that chewed up dreamers. Orphanages offered no warmth, just regimented cruelty. She clawed her way into a nursing program, acing every exam in a uniform that chafed like failure itself, only to graduate into a biker gang called the Pretty Ugly Motorcycle Gang, where even rebellion tasted bitter. Her shot at stardom as an idol? A fleeting audition drowned in a sea of 200,000 hopefuls, her name lost in the shuffle. Jessie's rage wasn't born from malice. It simmered from a lifetime of doors slamming shut, each no forging her into the queen of desperate schemes. You see her eyes flash during those rare quiet confessions, perched on a cliffside after another defeat, and suddenly the villain softens into a woman who just wanted the spotlight she was denied. James, her counterpart in purple velvet and rose-tinted melancholy, carried his own gilded cage of sorrow. Heir to a sprawling estate where butlers outnumbered friends, young James grew up surrounded by luxury that felt like chains, Pokémon bred for show, not soul, and a family more interested in lineage than love. His prized collections of bottle caps and cards spoke to a boy's innocent joy, stamped out by the arrival of Jessie Bell, his fiancée arranged by parental decree, a whip-cracking tyrant who embodied everything he fled. He bolted from that mansion in the dead of night, trading silk sheets for the rough camaraderie of street theatre troupes and bike gangs, his aristocratic drawl hiding a soul adrift. When he met Jessie in a prison cell, sharing laughs over meagre rations, it wasn't alliance born of evil. It was two lost aristocrats and paupers finding mirror images in each other's fractured pasts. Their partnership humanized them, turning what could have been faceless goons into antagonists you rooted for, even as they plotted Pikachu's doom. And then there was Meowth, the wild card scratching at the edges of Pokémon philosophy itself. In a world where creatures battled on instinct and command, this scrappy feline from the Hollywood back alleys willed himself into human speech through raw, unyielding determination. Picture him as a kitten, wide-eyed amid the glamour of human performers, enamored with Meowsy, a sleek Persian who lounged with movie stars, batting away his clumsy advances. "Someday, you'll see me as an equal," he vowed, practicing his payphone poses and two-legged strut in the rain-slicked gutters. Months turned to agony as he mimicked radio announcers, bartered for language lessons from a kindly grandmother, until words tumbled from his throat like forbidden magic. But triumph soured when Meowsy recoiled. "A monster like you, talking like a human? Pathetic," leaving Meowth shattered, his humanity a curse that isolated him from both worlds. He joined Team Rocket not for glory, but for a twisted family where his voice finally belonged, translating their motto into schemes that always, inevitably, crumbled. Meowth's arc pierced deeper than comedy. It whispered profound questions about will and identity. Why him, the only Pokémon to bridge species through sheer grit? In Kanto's lore, where legendaries slumbered in myth and starters bonded by fate, Meowth embodied the existential hustle, the outsider who bootstrapped transcendence, only to question if the cost was worth it. His soliloquies, murmured under starry skies as Jesse and James snored, echoed human struggles. The immigrant chasing assimilation, the artist defying biology for expression. Team Rocket's trio became a philosophical triad, their failures not flaws but fables, teaching that persistence outlives perfection. Those failures? Oh, they were the secret source of the original show's rhythm, a lullaby of repetition that wrapped young viewers in comforting predictability. Episode after episode, the balloon inflated with hot air bravado, the motto rolled out like a ritual chant, nets flung wide for Pikachu's zap, then boom, the inevitable twinkle in the sky as they rocketed away, yelling, "We're blasting off again!" It wasn't random chaos, it was a metronome, pulsing through the chaos of gyms and evolutions. For kids glued to the screen after school, this cycle soothed like a familiar bedtime story. No loose ends, no true peril, just the assurance that tomorrow they'd try again. Ash won badges through grit and luck, but Team Rocket lost with style, their elaborate mechs crumpling into fireworks, proving failure could be fun, flamboyant, even freeing. In a series brimming with growth and goodbye, their stasis offered respite, a reminder that some chases never end, and that's perfectly fine. Their humanity seeped into subtler moments too, the time Jessie nursed a Magikarp back to health, only for it to flop away ungrateful, or James trading his bottle caps for a fleeting bond with a weeping bell that evolved beyond him. These vignettes, tucked amid the mayhem, blurred hero and villain, making Kanto feel lived in, its skies forever dotted with falling stars that were really just three dreamers in disguise. You couldn't hate them. You empathized, chuckling as they dusted off for the next caper, their motto evolving slightly, but eternally the same. Yet even in this parade of predictable pitfalls, the original series wove threads of unease. Hints at Kanto's wilds hid more than mischievous trios. Whispers of spectral figures on mist-shrouded shores beckon us forward, where illusions dance with ancient longing in Chapter 6, the ghost of Maiden's Peak. What restless spirit guards that fog-veiled bay, and why did it ensnare even the boldest trainers in its ethereal grasp? While Jessie, James and Meowth embodied failure laced with heartbreaking resolve, the Pokémon world hid tragedies that no amount of willpower could unravel, ghosts bound by sorrow, forever haunting the living. As early as episode 20, the anime plunged into genuine chills with the ghost of Maiden's Peak, a tale that traded battling arenas for fog-shrouded cliffs and the relentless crash of midnight waves. Picture our trio docking at a vibrant coastal festival, lanterns swaying like fireflies against the darkening sky, the air thick with the scent of sizzling takoyaki and salt spray. Ash bounces with his usual energy, Brock swoons over kimono-clad locales, and Misty, whose red hair and sharp features eerily mirror an ancient portrait, feels an inexplicable pull toward the peak looming above. Villagers whisper of a maiden from centuries past, a beauty who fell for a handsome sailor promising eternal return. He vanished into a storm, leaving her to pine away, her spirit now rising each year to lure unwary men into the depths, their screams swallowed by the sea. That first sighting hits like a cold hand on your neck. High on the cliff amid swirling mist, a pale figure materializes, long black hair whipping in the wind, eyes glowing with unearthly light, her voice a guttural wail that silences the festivities. She drifts toward the shore, arms outstretched, beckoning Brock with a lover's call. He nearly hurls himself into the surf before Pikachu's Thunderbolt snaps him free. The terror lingers. Even in broad daylight, the group uncovers faded scrolls depicting the Maiden's curse, her grudge etched in ink older than the oaks, twisting along the path. This wasn't cartoon spookiness. No goofy Grimers or Ghastlies popping out for laughs. The animation slowed, shadows deepened, the soundtrack dropped to hollow echoes of dripping water and distant thunder, forcing you to question if Pokémon truly tamed every mystery. What elevated this beyond a simple campfire yarn was its roots in Japanese folklore, the kind Satoshi Tajiri grew up devouring in rural Machida. The Maiden channels the Yurei, those vengeful spirits of the aggrieved, straight from tales like Oiwa's Onryo in Yotsuya Kaiden, where betrayed women return as rotting apparitions to drag the faithless to watery graves. Echoes of Yuki Onna ripple through too, the snow woman who seduces wanderers before freezing their hearts, blended with Hitodama, soul flames flickering over graves. Maiden's Peak wasn't imported Hollywood horror. It breathed the damp chill of Edo period ghost stories, where Obake lurked in every lantern's flicker, punishing the living for forgotten oaths. The episode flirted boldly with these elements, never shying from the Maiden's skeletal undertones or the implication that her curse might be real, eternal, feeding on human folly across generations. As the night deepens, the ghost strikes again, singling out Ash and Brock, her form growing more monstrous, tendrils of fog coiling like spectral fingers. Misty confronts her atop the peak, the wind howling prophecies of doom, and in a revelation that twists the knife, the truth unfolds. Not a Pokémon prank, but a human heart fractured by loss. An elderly woman, descendant of that original Maiden, crafts the illusion from phosphorescent cloth and cunning wires, her ghost eyes borrowed from a hidden Venonat perched in the rocks. Why? Her own son courts the sea, dreaming of sails like his drowned father, and she'll summon every legend to chain him to shore. No Team Rocket blast-off here. The resolution aches with quiet devastation, the mother's tears mingling with sea foam as she releases her desperate vigil. Life and death entwine, not as abstract forces, but as raw, personal voids that Pokémon companionship can only softly illuminate. This tonal shift marked a pivot for the series, away from relentless optimism toward whispers of the supernatural's unyielding grip. Early episodes brimmed with sunny gyms and badge hunts, Pikachu's sparks chasing shadows away. But Maiden's Peak dared genuine dread, the kind that lingers after lights out, evoking life's fragility amid Kanto's wild beauty. Death wasn't a villain's defeat, it was the sea's indifferent hunger, the Maiden's undying weight a mirror to every unresolved grief. The supernatural intruded not as a battle fodder, but a cultural heirloom, hinting that Pokémon inhabited a world rich with yokai unseen in Pokédex pages, spirits coexisting with Charmanders, perhaps even predating them. Those one-off episodes like this wove the illusion of vastness, a darker tapestry beneath the adventure's surface. A standalone ghost story? Sure, but it planted seeds of wonder. What if the Maiden's curse echoed real Yurei roaming forgotten roots? Why did the portrait so perfectly match Misty, as if fate scripted her arrival? Creators layered these fillers with deliberate ambiguity, evoking the sprawling lore of Japanese urban legends, where every village hoards its own haunt. They crafted a Kanto that felt alive, perilous, infinite, wilderness not just for training, but teeming with ancestral echoes that Ash's journey could never fully chart. One spectral wail expanded the horizon, suggesting horrors and heartbreaks lurking beyond the next bend, making the Pokémon world pulse with unspoken depth. And as these eerie notes faded into the festival's lanterns, they paved the way for sounds that would define generations. Up next in Chapter 7, The Music of a Generation, we'll uncover how those haunting melodies turned simple pixels into symphonies that still echo in your dreams. As the eerie mists of Maiden's Peak faded from the screen, leaving you with that lingering chill of ghosts and forgotten rituals, the soundtrack shifted ever so subtly. A soft swell of strings emerged, wrapping the supernatural in a blanket of melancholy wonder. That was no accident. Shinji Miyazaki's orchestral score for the original Pokémon series wasn't just background noise. It was the heartbeat of Kanto itself, a masterful blend of symphony and serenity designed to pull at the strings of your memory. Miyazaki, a composer whose work on early anime episodes captured the wild essence of a world teeming with hidden magic, layered his arrangements with an almost painterly precision. Picture the opening notes of the Indigo League theme, violins soaring like Pidgeot over sun-dappled forests, cellos rumbling low like the earth awakening under onyx's coils. He drew from classical roots, think Debussy's impressionistic waves for the ocean roots, or Satie's sparse piano for those quiet trainer campsites, but infused them with Japanese folk influences, shamisen plucks echoing ancient tales. This wasn't bombast for battles, it was nostalgia woven into every measure, evoking the innocence of childhood adventures you didn't even know you'd lived. What made it genius was Miyazaki's restraint. In episodes like the one we just left behind, where the boundary between life and death blurred on that fog-shrouded shore, his score didn't overpower the horror. Instead, it amplified the unease with dissonant harmonics that resolved into fragile hope, flutes whispering like lost spirits finding peace. Fans still swear by it today, those sweeping orchestral cues during Mewtwo's awakening, or the GS Ball's glow transport you back to Saturday mornings, screen glowing in a darkened room, the world outside forgotten. It's why grown adults queue up remastered tracks on streaming playlists, chasing that ache of simpler times when a Pikachu spark could light up the unknown. But Miyazaki's true brilliance shone in how he mirrored the journey's emotional arc. Early Kanto tracks burst with youthful exuberance, brass fanfares for gym triumphs, playful xylophones for Brock's gym puzzles. But as the series delved deeper into loss, like the spectral whispers of Maiden's Peak, the music grew introspective. Harps evoked the fragility of bonds, while muted horns underscored Team Rocket's comedic tragedies. He composed over 200 cues for the first season alone, each tailored to the region's soul. Verdant greens of Viridian Forest alive with woodwinds. The stark isolation of Rock Tunnel pierced by echoing percussion. Nostalgia hit hardest in the filler episodes, those meandering paths where silence reigned, broken only by a lone oboe tracing Ash's doubts. And then there was the English dub, transforming Pokémon into a global phenomenon with one unforgettable anthem. The Pokémon theme, belted out by 4Kids Entertainment in 1998, wasn't just an opening sequence, it became the rallying cry of an entire generation. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Those lyrics pulsed with unbridled ambition, backed by electric guitars and a choir of kids' voices that screamed freedom. Airing on Kids WB, alongside Beast Wars and Yu-Gi-Oh!, it infiltrated schoolyards, mixtapes, and even adult nostalgia playlists decades later. That theme exploded culturally because it captured the 90s zeitgeist perfectly. Post-Cold War optimism, the dawn of the internet age, kids trading Game Boys under cafeteria tables. It charted on Billboard, inspired parodies from Weird Al to South Park, and soundtracked everything from playground battles to ironic TikToks in 2024. The full minute-and-a-half version, with its escalating key changes mimicking a level up, glued viewers to their seats every episode. Critics dismissed it as cheesy bubblegum pop, but its staying power proved otherwise. Over 1 billion YouTube views for covers alone. Cementing Pokémon as more than a show, it was a movement. Yet for all its bombast, the original series thrived on balance. Miyazaki's score masterfully employed silence and ambient nature sounds to craft what fans now call its sleep-friendly allure. Think of those transitional scenes. No music, just the rustle of leaves in Pallet Town, distant waves lapping at Cinnabar's shores, or Pikachu's soft breathing by the campfire. These pockets of quiet weren't filler. They were breaths, allowing the orchestra's swells to land with greater impact. In a medium saturated with constant cues, Pokémon dared to let the world breathe. The crunch of gravel under Ash's sneakers on Route 1, the chirp of Pidgey in the underbrush, the faint howl of wind through Lavender Tower. These field recordings, sourced from real Japanese countrysides, created an ASMR-like immersion long before the term existed. During night scenes like staking out the ghost ship or waiting for the Maiden's apparition, layers of crickets and gentle breezes lulled you into a trance, making the scares hit harder when the brass crashed in. It's why this series doubles as bedtime lore today. The score's dynamic range from thunderous gyms to hushed wilds mirrors sleep cycles, nostalgic highs fading into restorative calm. Miyazaki himself revealed in rare interviews that he aimed for music that feels like home, scoring not for hype, but for heart. Those ambient tales lingered post-battle, evolving Pokémon cries blending into twilight choruses, evoking the cycle of growth and rest. Even Team Rocket blasts ended not in silence, but with fading echoes of their motto over wind-swept plains. A poignant reminder of persistence amid failure. This sonic tapestry didn't just score episodes, it scored our lives, turning fleeting TV moments into lifelong echoes. As Pikachu's tail thumps softly in the undergrowth, you feel it, that pull back to when the world was vast and full of promise. But beneath those nurturing melodies lay the steady presence of one companion whose own burdens shaped the group's rhythm. Up next, we uncover Brock and the weight of responsibility, where a gym leader's quiet sacrifices reveal the true cost of the journey. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. That unforgettable Pokémon theme, with its soaring guitars and chorus of voices, didn't just soundtrack victories, it wrapped around the quieter moments, the ones where true character shone through, like the steady gaze of Brock as he stirred a pot over a campfire, siblings' faces flickering in his mind even miles from home. In the shadow of Pewter City's gym, Brock had become more than a rock-type specialist. He was the pillar holding up a crumbling family. Picture the slate-grey walls of that modest gym, badges gleaming on a shelf he'd polished 1,000 times. But behind the counter, chaos reigned. 9 younger brothers and sisters, clamoring for attention, meals to cook, scrapes to bandage, Pokémon to feed. Their father, Flint, had vanished years before, chasing some elusive dream of strength on distant mountains, leaving Brock at 16 to shoulder it all. No dramatic quest called him away. It was diapers, school runs, and endless nights wondering if he'd ever taste freedom. You can hear it in his voice during those early episodes, that subtle weariness beneath the calm. Episode 18, Showdown at Dark City. Hints at it first, but it's episode 20, Burning Ambitions, that rips the curtain back. Ash arrives, badges in hand, only to find the gym leader gone. Not defeated, not conquered, but abandoned. Brock's return unleashes the truth. He's been playing dad, gym leader, provider, all while the kids idolized him as their unbreakable onyx. The little ones cling to his legs, eyes wide with that mix of adoration and desperation, as Flint slinks back, tanned and contrite, finally ready to step up. Brock's face, that chiseled jaw tightening, doesn't explode in rage. He hands over the keys, the weight visibly lifting, yet you sense the scars. What makes this revelation hit so hard? In the world of shonen anime, gym leaders, or any mentor figure, are eternal fixtures. Think of the wise old masters in Dragon Ball, rooted in dojos, dispensing wisdom between battles, or Naruto's village elders, immovable sentinels of tradition. They train the hero, test their mettle, then fade into legend, gym intact, legacy secure. But Brock, he torches the trope. He walks away from power, prestige, the adoring crowds at pewter gym, for a ratty sleeping bag on hard ground and Ash's endless optimism. No prophecy pulls him, no ancient evil demands his sword arm. It's a choice born of suffocation, a young man reclaiming his youth after years stolen by duty. The animators linger on that moment, his siblings waving goodbye, Flint nodding awkwardly, scoring it with Miyazaki's gentle strings, turning departure into quiet revolution. This wasn't filler backstory, dropped for sympathy points. It rippled through every episode. Brock became the group's unspoken father, the one who packed lunches before dawn, scouted safe campsites, and mediated Ash's impulsiveness with a raised eyebrow and a sigh. Remember the time in The School of Hard Knocks, when he schools the kids on real teamwork, drawing from nights corralling his own brood? Or A Friend Indeed, where his nurturing instincts turn a wild Pokémon into family? He flirts harmlessly with Nurse Joy, sure, but it's his rock-steady presence that glues them together, the found family anchor in a storm of Pikachu sparks and bike-riding mishaps. That maturity seeped into the smallest details, elevating the show beyond kid fare. While Ash charged blindly and Misty bickered, Brock measured rice with practiced hands, his Geodude hauling firewood like an extra set of arms from home. The dub actors nailed it, Eric Stewart's gravelly warmth conveying exhaustion, masked as enthusiasm. In Japan, Yuji Ueda layered exhaustion into resolve, making Brock's rare smiles feel earned. Fans latched on. Forums buzzed in the late 90s about this relatable dad bro. Cosplayers bulked up to mimic his broad shoulders. It humanized the journey, reminding you that adventure isn't just badges, it's escaping the gravity of obligation. Yet Brock's burden lingered like morning fog over Viridian Forest. Flashbacks in later seasons, like his return visits, in a family that battles together stays together, show the gym thriving under Flint, but Brock's eyes betray the pull. He's traded certainty for uncertainty, siblings' laughter echoing in dreams as he brews stew under stars. This depth-fueled fan theories was his wandering a subtle critique of absent parents in Japan's bubble economy era, or a nod to real-life hikikomori youth breaking free. The writers wove it organically, never preaching, letting actions speak. Brock bandaging Misty's scrapes with the tenderness of big brother habit, lecturing Ash on nutrition mid-battle prep. In a series bursting with legendaries and doomsday plots, Brock grounded it all, his weight of responsibility a counterpoint to the whimsy. He didn't seek glory, he sought breath, air after years underwater. That radical departure from Pewter's stone steps. It redefined companionship, making Team Rocket's blasts and badge hunts feel like family road trips with laundry lists attached. And as Brock steadied the ship through early tempests, the waves from one passenger's sharp tongue threatened to capsize them. Misty's temper and hidden depth up next, where her fire reveals layers no one saw coming. While Brock abandoned the unyielding stones of Pewter Gym to chase horizons beyond sibling chaos, Misty clung to the shimmering pools of Cerulean City, her own family a gilded cage of spotlights and neglect. You remember her first explosion? Don't you? That furious spray of water from Starmie as Ash's Pikachu charred her prized bike to a smouldering wreck. She chased him across Kanto with a grudge that could curdle milk, her orange ponytail whipping like a battle flag. But peel back that scalding temper, and you uncover not just a hothead, but a girl forged in the shadow of three sisters who eclipsed her every step. Daisy, Violet, and Lily, the sensational sisters, glided through life on waves of applause and magazine covers. Their beauty a currency Misty could never quite mint. They'd swan dive into the Cerulean gym pool for photo shoots, leaving the actual training, the repairs, the endless grind of watertight battles to their tomboy sibling. Misty scrubbed the tiles at dawn, fed the Pokémon through the afternoons, and locked horns with challengers by dusk. All while her sisters jetted off to spotlight after spotlight. "You're so serious, Misty," they'd coo, flipping their perfect hair, their voices dripping with that effortless charm she envied. It wasn't jealousy that simmered beneath her skin. It was the ache of invisibility, the quiet conviction that she'd never measure up to their effortless grace. Her temper became armor, a shield against the world that saw her as the rough edges to their polish. Every shout at Ash, every mallet swing at Brock's wandering eyes, it deflected the deeper wound. In those early episodes, you catch glimpses of it cracking open. Like when she stares into the gym's trophy case, her reflection warped among her sisters' glittering prizes, her fingers tracing a badge she earned alone. Or the way her voice softens, just a fraction, when she tends to a hurt Pokémon, revealing the caretaker buried under the fury. The writers layered this subtly, dodging the one-note angry girl trap that plagues so many cartoons. Misty wasn't rage for rage's sake. She was a pressure valve for a lifetime of being the reliable one, the fixer, the afterthought. And then came the egg. Tucked in her backpack after a tangle with a wild Clefairy, it hatched under the stars one fateful night, spilling out Togepi, a tiny spike-crowned miracle with eyes wide as saucers. You can almost hear the soft coo echoing through the forest clearing. Feel the warmth of its downy feathers as Misty cradles it, her usual scowl melting into something tender, unguarded. This wasn't just a cute sidekick. Togepi unlocked her hidden depths, the maternal fire that her sister's vanity had starved. She bottle-fed it, shielded it from Team Rocket's nets, even battled with one arm wrapped protectively around its wobbly form. In a series brimming with evolutions and power-ups, Togepi's arrival marked Misty's quiet revolution, from sideline tsundere to heart of the group. That little Pokémon became the bridge to Johto, you see. While Ash chased badges in Kanto's familiar routes, Togepi's needs pulled them eastward, its evolutions and lore intertwined with the next region's misty peaks and goldenrod dreams. The egg's origins whispered of uncharted lands, a subtle hook that the showrunners planted amid the chaos. Fans pored over maps, debating if Togepi heralded Mewtwo's shadows or Celebi's time ripples, but really it foreshadowed the whirlpool currents drawing Misty homeward, her gym duties calling even as her adventures bloomed. Togepi softened her edges, teaching her vulnerability in a way no sisterly slight ever could, and it bound her tighter to Ash and Brock, turning their trio into something unbreakable. Beneath it all hummed that electric undercurrent, the unspoken spark between Misty and Ash that set fan forums ablaze. You'd catch it in the stolen glances during quiet campfires, her cheeks flushing as she barks at his oblivious grin. "You're such an idiot," she'd snap, but her eyes lingered a beat too long on his determined profile, the firelight dancing across his cap. He'd hand her a berry without thinking, or she'd mend his torn jacket with stitches hidden from view. No grand confessions, no sweeping kisses, just the raw tension of two kids on the cusp, their bickering laced with what-ifs. Shipping culture exploded from there, poke shipping art flooding early internet dens, theories dissecting every bike joke and tent-sharing mishap. Was it destiny? Puppy love? The show thrived on that ambiguity, letting your imagination fill the spaces between her glares and his sheepish laughs. Misty's arc, he reshaped what a heroine could be in those pixelated days. Fierce yet fragile, overlooked yet luminous. Her temper wasn't a flaw to sand down. It was the spark that ignited her growth, from cerulean drudge to wandering soul with a Pokémon nestling in her arms. As the trio pressed onward, her hidden depths pulled them into wilder waters, where shadows loomed larger than any gym pool. Speaking of which, in Chapter 10, The Island of Giant Pokémon, you'll step onto sands where legends stomp like thunder, and a single footprint unravels everything our heroes thought they knew about size, scale, and the beasts that dwarf the stars. As Misty's Togepi blinked its wide eyes into the world, a tiny beacon of the Johto mysteries yet to come, the Pokémon anime was quietly evolving its view of these creatures beyond mere companions. What if they weren't just following orders, but thinking, feeling, scheming on their own? That question exploded into view just a few episodes later in the surreal fever dream known as the Island of Giant Pokémon. Picture Ash, Misty, and Brock washed ashore on a mist-shrouded isle after a freak storm rips their boat apart. No Pikachu at Ash's side. No Psyduck popping out of Misty's bag, uninvited. No Onix rumbling under Brock's command. For the first time, the unbreakable trio of trainers stands utterly alone, staring up at colossal shadows lumbering through the fog. And then, the screen splits. We hear nothing but the crash of waves and distant roars at first, but subtitles flicker to life, translating the impossible. Pokémon voices, raw and unfiltered, spilling secrets they've kept from their humans all along. Pikachu, that electric spark of loyalty, isn't just zapping foes for fun. Through those white text bubbles, he gripes about Ash's reckless plans, his exhaustion from constant battles, his quiet fear that one day the thunderbolt won't be enough. "Why does he always drag me into this?" Pikachu mutters as he trudges through the underbrush, his cheeks sparking with frustration. Meowth, ever the street-smart schemer from Team Rocket, translates for his crew, but here his feline wit shines solo, bantering with Bulbasaur and Squirtle like old alley cats swapping tails. Bulbasaur, the stoic grass starter, reveals a dry sarcasm, rolling his eyes at the chaos. Great, another human mess to clean up. Squirtle struts with cocky bravado, flexing his shell while plotting escapes that make you wonder if he's been humouring Misty's temper all this time. This wasn't filler animation, it was a deliberate rupture in the formula. The episode stretches those separation scenes across the island's eerie landscape, towering palms swaying like giants' fingers, bioluminescent fungi pulsing underfoot, the air thick with salt and primal growls. Giant Pokémon loom everywhere, a Venusaur the size of a mountain, its vine whips cracking like thunder, a Pinsir scuttling sideways with claws that could crush boulders. But the real giants are the subtitled dialogues, peeling back layers on these beings we've treated as extensions of their trainers. Charizard, usually a fiery rebel under. "Well, no one's direct control yet," Bellows commands in his gravelly tone, organising the wild behemoths like a dragon general. And Pikachu, he brokers peace between rivals, his voice a mix of exhaustion and fierce protectiveness, proving he's not just Ash's mascot, he's the glue holding their ragtag world together. Layer by layer, the subtitles dismantle the pet dynamic. We've seen Pokémon obey, evolve, even defy in bursts of personality, but here, separated by miles of treacherous terrain, they form their own society. Pikachu rallies a squad to rescue the trainers, not out of blind instinct, but calculated strategy laced with snark. "If we don't save those idiots, who's gonna feed us?" he quips, dodging a rampaging Raiden. Meowth pines for his balloon repairs, revealing cracks in Team Rocket's bluster. James's whining translated as genuine heartbreak over lost luxury. Jessie's fury masking deeper abandonment wounds. It's intimate, almost voyeuristic, eavesdropping on minds that pulse with humour, resentment, ambition. Squirtle leads a water brigade, barking orders with coughing-level swagger, while Bulbasaur's quiet wisdom cuts through the panic. Rushing in blindly is how humans got stuck here. The island itself breathes menace and wonder, a lost Eden where scale warps reality. Ash climbs a sheer cliff face, heart pounding, only to face a Gyarados longer than a city block, its subtitles roaring territorial fury. "This is my turf, scram, pest." Meanwhile, the Pokémon side unfolds in parallel, Pikachu navigating vine mazes, zapping foes with precision born of unspoken strategy sessions we've never witnessed. The episode toys with perspective flips, cutting between trainers' desperate scrambles and Pokémon councils under starry skies. where they debate loyalties. Does obedience stem from love, fear, or habit? Venusaur's booming voice hints at ancient hierarchies, forgotten pacts among the giants that predate any Pokeball. This structural gamble paid off in spades. By voicing the voiceless, through text that feels like telepathy, the show elevated Pokémon from reactive sidekicks to fully realised characters. No longer pets on leashes, they're sentient equals, their inner worlds as complex as any humans. Ash's blind trust, challenged by Pikachu's weary sighs. Misty's bike obsession. Squirtle chuckles about it privately. Brock's nurturing. Geodude grunts approval in rock-solid slang. It humanised them without anthropomorphizing too far, preserving the wild essence while cracking open souls. Fans latched on. Forums buzzed for weeks about these revelations, sparking fanfics where Pokémon plot world domination in subtitles. Yet the surrealism lingers like fog on that beach. The giants aren't just bigger, they're primal archetypes, echoing folklore of yokai isles where beasts rule unchecked. The storm that strands them? No accident, but a narrative reset, forcing viewers to question the trainer-Pokémon bond's fragility. What if separation became permanent? The episode dangles that abyss, resolved only when Pikachu's thunder reunites them in a cascade of sparks and cheers. But the subtitles fade, leaving echoes. From then on, every glance between Ash and Pikachu carries new weight. You know what's unspoken beneath. That fragile harmony between worlds teetered on the edge of catastrophe soon after, exploding into the forbidden Porygon Incident, where a single episode didn't just separate friends, it hospitalized hundreds and nearly ended the series before it truly began. While those giant Pokémon on the island finally let us hear their voices through those subtitles, whispering secrets only they knew. The very next chapter in our journey took Ash and the gang into a world where Pokémon themselves became digital ghosts, flickering on screens inside a massive computer network. But on December 16th, 1997, that innocent dive into cyberspace didn't just glitch the story, it triggered a catastrophe that hospitalized nearly 700 children across Japan in a single night. Picture the episode unfolding on TV Tokyo screens that evening. Cyber Soldier Porygon, episode 38 of the original run. Ash, Misty and Brock stumble into a high-tech lab run by Dr. Akihabara, a frantic scientist whose invention, a virtual Porygon, has been kidnapped by rogue programs inside his mainframe. You can almost feel the hum of cooling fans and the sterile glow of monitors as they jack into the system, their bodies shrinking into pixelated avatars racing through neon corridors of code. Porygon itself zips into view, a faceless pink and blue polygon, darting like a living algorithm, its body folding and reforming with every twist. It's pure early Pokémon wonder, a creature born from data, immune to the digital viruses swarming the network, blasting them with electric pulses that light up the grid like fireworks. The stakes climb as Team Rocket crashes the party, their mechs morphing into monstrous viruses that multiply and chase our heroes through collapsing data streams. Porygon teams up with Pikachu, the two syncing in a burst of synchronized attacks. Thunderbolts weaving through binary rain. You hear the urgency in the soundtrack, those sharp electronic beeps layering over Shinji Miyazaki's swelling strings, pulling you deeper into this alternate reality where flesh meets code. And then the climax hits. Cassidy and Butch detonate a rocket inside the core, unleashing a massive explosion. Red and blue lights strobe wildly across the screen, 12 flashes per second, relentless, unyielding. In the anime, it's meant to mimic a system overload, a visual punch of destruction. But for viewers at home, it became something far more visceral. Across Japan, living rooms filled with the cries of kids collapsing from the couch, eyes rolling back, bodies convulsing, parents dialing emergency lines in panic as screens continue to flicker innocently to the end. By morning, hospitals overflowed, 685 children treated for epileptic seizures, the largest outbreak linked to a TV broadcast in history. Photosensitive epilepsy, triggered by those precise rapid flashes, alternating red and blue at a frequency that hijacked the brain's visual cortex. News helicopters buzzed over medical centers in Tokyo, headlines screaming Pokémon shock nationwide. Kids as young as 3 suffered full grand mal seizures, some foaming at the mouth, others left staring blankly for hours. The government stepped in fast, yanking the episode mid-broadcast rerun and launching investigations into every animation studio. TV Tokyo suspended the entire series overnight. 4 months of dead air, no new episodes, no reruns, just a void where Saturday mornings used to sparkle, executives huddled in crisis meetings, combing through every frame of the first 38 episodes for hidden triggers. Fan letters poured in, some blaming the show for cursing their families, others defending it as an accident born of bold creativity. Pokemon's young director, Masamitsu Hidaka, carried the weight, later admitting the guilt gnawed at him for years. Sponsors wavered, merchandise sales dipped, and whispers spread that the franchise might not survive. Yet in that silence, a transformation brewed. Not just in Pokemon, but in the anime industry at large. When the show returned in April 1998, it emerged fundamentally altered, its visual language rewritten by strict new guidelines etched into every storyboard artist's handbook. No more than 3 consecutive frames of flashing lights, alternating colours, banned above 4 Hz. Sudden brightness, shifts capped at a gentle ramp-up. Cell animation techniques shifted too. Fewer stark contrasts, softer gradients in explosions, test screenings with neurologists to catch triggers before airtime. You notice it immediately in later episodes. Battles that once popped with raw energy now pulse with restraint. Thunderbolts diffusing into hazy glows. Psychic blasts fading like distant stars. This wasn't dilution, it was evolution, safeguarding the magic for everyone. Pokémon became a pioneer in seizure-safe production, influencing global standards from Cartoon Network to the FCC advisories that followed. The hiatus birthed a safer era, but at the cost of that untamed spark, the wild, unfiltered visuals that made the original run feel alive, dangerous even. And at the heart of it all, Porygon, the innocent digital duck, exiled forever from the anime's world. Despite its clean design, no flashing moves, no epilepsy ties, it became the scapegoat, too closely linked to the lab and the catastrophe. Game Freak quietly retconned it out. Porygon never returns, in over 1,000 episodes, not even a cameo. Its evolutions, Porygon to and Porygon Z, slip in cautiously years later. But the original stays banished, a ghost in the machine. Fans speculate wildly, curses from its Game Boy origins, pressure from parents' groups. But the truth lingers simpler. Symbolism. One Polygon too many evoked that night. Porygon watches from the games, evolving in silence, while the anime races on without it, a permanent scar on the series' skin. That shadow of unintended harm hung heavy, reshaping how Pokémon danced with technology and risk. But as the episodes resumed, bolder questions loomed about creation itself. Life forged in labs, clones wrestling with souls. Up next in Chapter 12, Mewtwo and the Ethics of Creation pulls back the curtain on a legend born from science's darkest ambitions, forcing us to confront what it truly means to play God in the Pokémon world. As the dust settled from that infamous Porygon episode, and the long hiatus reshaped the show's flickering visuals into something safer, the Pokémon world confronted a shadow far more profound than any strobe-like glitch. Mewtwo, the legendary clone born in a hidden laboratory, didn't just battle Ash and his friends, he forced us all to stare into the abyss of what it means to play God with life itself. Picture the sterile hum of that island facility, where scientists in white coats pored over bubbling vats, their ambition blinding them to the storm they brewed. They took Mew, the mythical ancestor of all Pokémon, sliced its DNA like a forbidden fruit, and rebuilt it into something superior, or so they thought. Mewtwo emerged not as a triumph, but a furious question mark, his violet eyes piercing the veil between creator and created. In the first movie, released in Japan in July of 1998, this wasn't kids' fare. It was a meditation on existence, echoing Frankenstein's monster, but wrapped in psychic blasts and clone armies. You can feel the weight in those opening scenes, the rain-slicked shores where Mewtwo awakens, his voice a chilling whisper over crashing waves. "Who am I?" he demands, not of Pikachu or Charizard, but of the very scientist who birthed him. They lied to him, called him the son of Mew, pumped him full of false purpose until the betrayal hit like a psychic explosion. He razes the lab, drowning his makers in their own hubris, and sails off into exile, haunted by the emptiness of his engineered soul. This isn't the light-hearted badge quest of the TV series. It's a raw critique of cloning, of humans meddling in nature's code without reckoning the cost. And that cost ripples straight into the show's canon, doesn't it? The movies weren't side stories. They wove into the timeline, their events acknowledged in episodes that followed. Think of how Mewtwo's rage in the film casts a long shadow over later TV arcs, where cloned Pokémon like Ditto or the experimental ones in Johto episodes grapple with identity. The series, usually a parade of sunny adventures and goofy Team Rocket blasts, suddenly had to contend with this philosophical anchor. Mewtwo's crisis lingers like an unspoken rule. Creation without consent is violence. Dive deeper, and you see the scientist's folly laid bare. Sakaki, the Team Rocket boss who funds the project, embodies that blind arrogance, pouring billions into a weaponized god, only to watch it turn on him. Mewtwo clones an army of Pokémon, lures trainers to his cloned paradise, and reveals the truth in a holographic showdown. "I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant," he declares to Ash moments before the climactic clash. But is it? The film doesn't let you off easy. Mewtwo's existential storm rages because he was made, not born, ripped from a gene splicer. No mother, no wild roots, just cold calculation masquerading as progress. This darkness clashes so sharply with the TV show's relentless optimism, it's almost jarring. While Brock juggles siblings and Misty chases her sister's shadows, the series paints Pokémon training as pure joy, a bond transcending species. Enter Mewtwo, and that bond fractures. He views humans as tyrants, enslavers who capture and command. In his fortress, firebirds scorch the sky, cloned herds stampede, and the air thickens with moral fog. Ash's sacrifice, turned to stone in that heart-wrenching finale, mirrors Mewtwo's pain, pulling tears from kids who moments before laughed at James in drag. The movie dared to ask, what if Pokémon resent us? What if our Pokéballs are cages? Yet the show's canon absorbs it, transforms it. Post-movie episodes nod to Mewtwo's island, his uneasy truce with humanity. He becomes a guardian in the manga extensions, a reluctant ally, proving the series' core. Even the darkest origins can bend toward light. But that philosophical punch never fully fades. Cloning ethics echo in Mewtwo Returns, the special that bridges movie to show, where he protects a new clone, Lily, from the same fate. Scientists return, scheming again, and Mewtwo's roar reminds us, hubris doesn't learn, it regenerates. Feel the chill in how the dub handled it too. Veronica Taylor's Ash pleads with a gravitas rare for Saturday mornings, while Philip Bartlett's Mewtwo voice drips with tormented intellect. The orchestral swells from Shinji Miyazaki, building on his TV mastery, turn psychic duels into symphonies of doubt. No wonder fans still debate it. Is Mewtwo a villain redeemed, or a mirror to our own overreach? In an era of Dolly the Sheep and early gene editing whispers, the film hit like prophecy, warning that science is God, complex births, monsters not of flesh, but of isolation. That tension, the movie's brooding depths against the show's buoyant spirit, elevates everything. Episodes like the giant Pokémon Island flirted with Pokémon perspectives, but Mewtwo shatters the fourth wall of innocence. He forces trainers, and us, to question, are we partners or overlords? The canon shifts subtly after, with more episodes exploring abandonment, loyalty, wild Pokémon fury. It's the ethical spine the series needed, a critique wrapped in adventure that lingers long after the credits. As Mewtwo vanishes into the storm, vowing solitude but touched by unlikely friendship, you sense the world expanding, horizons teasing new leagues and stranger experiments. That sets the stage perfectly for what's next. Chapter 13, The Orange Islands Experiment, where the show tests boundaries in ways that will leave you wondering just how far they dared to sail. As the echoes of Mewtwo's thunderous roar faded from the big screen, questioning the very soul of what it meant to be alive, the Pokémon anime didn't rush back to the familiar gyms of Kanto. Instead, it charted a course for distant horizons, a sprawling archipelago known as the Orange Islands, born from a clever necessity in the shadows of game development delays. Picture the production rooms in Tokyo, 1999, where the Pokémon phenomenon had exploded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Gold and Silver, the hotly anticipated sequels to Red and Green, were running behind schedule, technical hurdles with the Game Boy Color pushing their release into the next year. The anime, airing weekly to insatiable fans, couldn't just pause. Viewers craved more Ash, more Pikachu, more badges, so the writers crafted a bridge, a sun-drenched filler saga spanning 24 episodes, the Orange Islands League. It wasn't mere padding, it was a pressure valve, letting the story breathe while buying precious time for Johto's pixelated wonders to materialize. These islands weren't some lazy afterthought slapped onto a map. They evoked the real-world Ryukyu chain, Okinawa's turquoise waters and volcanic peaks, transforming the series palette from Kanto's misty forests to swaying palms and endless cerulean seas. Ash's journey pivoted from badge hunts on foot to high seas voyages aboard the St. Anne's salvaged hull, crewed by a salty captain named Marcus. The soundtrack swelled with ukulele strums and conch shell calls, infusing every frame with a vacation-like wanderlust that felt worlds away from Viridian City's grit. Waves crashed against jagged reefs as Tauros stampeded through sandy dunes, and schools of crabby scuttled under moonlit tides, pure escapism, pulling you into a rhythm of salt spray and starlit decks. At the heart of this tropical detour pulsed a tantalizing enigma, the GS Ball. Delivered to Professor Oak by a weary Ipom from the Whispering Cape, this shimmering orb arrived in episode 111, cloaked in prophecy. Oak tasked Ash with safeguarding it, a glowing MacGuffin etched with runes hinting at Mewtwo's lingering mysteries, or perhaps Lugia's distant song. It dangled like a siren's lure through the arc, unsolved until Johto's gates swung open, where it finally cracked to reveal Celebi's timeless glow. The GS Ball wasn't just plot filler, it was a narrative tether, whispering that bigger legends stirred beyond the waves, shifting the tone from episodic skirmishes to an adventurous odyssey laced with foreshadowing. But the true genius unfolded in the battles against the Orange Crew, 4 masters who redefined what a gym challenge could be. No stuffy arenas here. These were elemental trials woven into the island's wild pulse. Sissy of Mycon Island didn't test raw power. She demanded harmony with the sea. Ash's Pikachu rode waves on a Lapras surfboard, dodging Seadra blasts amid foaming crests, earning the Coral Eye badge only after sinking with the ocean's unpredictable fury. It introduced a fluidity to combat we'd never seen, where environment wasn't backdrop but partner, a precursor to contests and terrain effects in later eras. Then came Danny on sun-baked Naval Island, where volcanoes belched steam and boulders tumbled like forgotten gods. His arena? A sheer rock face, forcing Ash to climb while swapping Pokémon mid-ascent, Geodude versus Charizard in a gravity-defying dance of fire and stone. The lava badge gleamed with sweat-earned triumph, hinting at challenges that prized endurance over brute force, regional quirks that made every victory feel bespoke to its shore. Rudy's Travita Island burned with flamenco flair, his gym, coliseum of spotlights and swirling capes. He confessed a crush on Misty mid-battle, but his Electrode and Electabuzz forced Ash to weave precision strikes through pyrotechnic chaos, claiming the Spike Shell badge amid cheering crowds. Luana's Kumquat Island capped it with doubles, her Alakazam and Marowak tag teaming Ash's lineup on a luxurious resort balcony, waves lapping below. These weren't Kanto clones, they were variants in spirit, unique badges shaped like exotic shells, Pokémon wielding moves in novel combos, battles that bent rules to mirror island life. The Orange League crown, block badge in hand, from Champion Drake's Dragonite-drenched finale, crowned Ash not as Kanto's king, but a Voyager ready for uncharted leagues. This experiment paid dividends beyond stalling for gold and silver. It injected adrenaline into a series flirting with fatigue, proving Pokémon could thrive untethered from game fidelity. Viewers tuned in for the escapism, the carefree dips in hidden lagoons, Togepi hatching amid fireworks skies, Team Rocket's submarine blunders, sinking in comedic whirlpools. Yet beneath the breezy veneer lurked evolution. Regional flavors teased like the island's exclusive Lapras herds or electrified Magikarp leaps, planting seeds for Sinnoh's forms and Paldea's paradoxes. The Orange Islands weren't filler, they were reinvention, a humid exhale before Johto's misty inhale, proving the anime's adaptability kept it eternally special. And as Ash pockets his trophy, eyes fixed on smouldering horizons, a certain fiery companion simmers with unresolved fury. Up next in Chapter 14, Charizard's betrayal and redemption, where loyalty fractures in the heat of one disobedient roar, pulling you deeper into the heart-wrenching bonds that defined it all. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. As Ash washed up on the shores of Pallet Town after his triumphant Orange Island saga, that mysterious GS ball tucked safely away, his sights turned back to the ultimate prize, the Indigo League. But victory wouldn't come easy, not with the fire burning inside one of his most volatile partners. Charmander, the abandoned survivor he'd rescued from a downpour on the edge of death, had clawed his way through evolutions that tested loyalties forged in desperation. You remember that rainy night, don't you? Little Charmander, tail flame flickering like a candle in a storm, left chained by his cruel trainer Damien, who called him worthless. Ash scooped him up, nursed him back, and from that moment, Charmander embodied unwavering devotion. Battles blurred into brotherhood, flamethrowers scorching foes in gyms across Kanto, that tiny orange body leaping into harm's way, for Ash without hesitation. He was the underdog's heart, the proof that Pokémon weren't tools but friends who chose their paths. Then came the shift, subtle at first, during the rematch with Blaine on Cinnabar Island. Charmander, pushed to his limits against that hulking Magmar, felt the surge of power ripple through him. His body glowed, stretched, scales hardening into Charmeleon's fierce armor. But evolution twisted something deeper. No longer the eager pup, Charmeleon turned aloof, eyes narrowing at Ash's commands, as if questioning the kid's worthiness. Flames shot wilder, angrier, obeying only when it suited him. Ash scratched his head, puzzled but pressed on. The tropical breezes of their recent adventures still fresh in the air, the breaking point scorched the stadium lights during the Indigo League quarterfinals. Charmeleon had evolved again, mid-battle against Poliwrath's relentless waves, erupting into Charizard, a colossal dragon of raw might, wings blotting the sun, roar shaking the stands. Ash beamed, certain this powerhouse would carry them to the championship. But Charizard sneered, lounging on the field like a king dismissing a peasant. "Charizard, flamethrower!" Ash yelled, voice cracking with urgency. Nothing. The beast crossed its arms, ignoring the swirling vortex of Poliwrath's attacks. Richie, Ash's pint-sized rival, with his loyal Pikachu Sparky, capitalized, and just like that, Ash's dream crumbled in disqualification flames. That refusal hit harder than any defeat. Fans in living rooms across the world gasped. Why would Charizard, the symbol of Ash's perseverance, betray him now? It wasn't mere disobedience. It mirrored the raw truth of growth. Charmander's blind loyalty had burned away in Evolution's forge, leaving a dragon too proud to bow to a trainer still green. Ash dragged his slumped wings back to pallet, tears stinging under stadium lights, the crowd's cheers turning to murmurs. The Indigo League trophy slipped from grasp, but the wound cut to the series' core. Bonds aren't guaranteed, they demand respect on both sides. Months dragged, tensions simmering through filler quests and island hops. Charizard sulked in Oak's lab, brawling with rivals, flames charring enclosures. Ash couldn't tame him, freezing him solid in a desperate training ploy on Shamuti Island, only thawed resentment. Yet whispers of redemption echoed from misty valleys far north. Charisific Valley, a hidden paradise cradled in Hoenn's rugged peaks, called to fire types seeking supremacy. Legends spoke of colossal Charizards ruling there, their flames hot enough to melt stone, training regimens brutal as ancient rites. Ash trekked there, Charizard in tow, wings straining against mountain gales thick with sulphur. The valley unfolded like a cauldron, lava rivers, glowing crimson, air shimmering with heat haze, massive Charizards wheeling overhead in aerial dogfights. Liza, the valley's guardian, laid down the challenge, prove your fire or leave. Charizard scoffed at first, but the alpha female descended, her seismic tail quaking the earth. Battle ignited, tails clashing in sparks that lit the dusk, roars blending with thunderclaps. Charizard faltered, blasted into cliffs, pride shattered amid ash and embers. Nights passed in steamy grottos, Charizard licking wounds by geothermal pools, watching alphas drill evolutions into submission. Ash camped nearby, silent support no longer commands. Dawn broke with fury, Charizard rose, flames blew hot, countering seismic slams with seismic toss of his own. Wings beat cyclones, flamethrowers pierced defenses, until victory perched on his snout. The valley bowed, he was king. But true redemption flickered when Ash called from the sidelines. Charizard turned, eyes softening, then soared to his side, not as servant, but equal. That bond sealed in fire's glow carried them forward, Charizard's might now harnessed for championships anew. Yet the valley's pull lingered, a poignant farewell etched in embers. In later journeys he'd return there to train alphas, bidding Ash a temporary adieu that tugged heartstrings worldwide. Charmander's arc, from forsaken flame to defiant sovereign to redeemed guardian, mirrored Ash's own maturation, proving Pokémon lore thrived not in flawless wins, but in the ache of growth. And as Charizard's wings fade into those fiery horizons, the skies of Kanto stir with omens far grander. Up next in Chapter 15, the lore of the legendary birds, where Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres unleash tempests that redefine destiny itself. Don't drift off just yet. Ash's 8th badge victory turned to dust in that final Indigo League battle. Charizard's wings folded in proud refusal, leaving him scorched and humbled on the field. But defeat never chained our hero for long. As the crowd faded and the stadium lights dimmed, Ash turned his gaze westward, beyond the familiar shores of Kanto, toward the vast, uncharted orange archipelago. There, boy, whispers of ancient powers stirred, powers that dwarfed even the mightiest evolutions, forces that the world itself bowed to. You could feel it in the salt-laced wind whipping through those tropical isles. the way the waves crashed with a rhythm older than trainers or badges. The legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, weren't just rare catches for some ambitious Pokédex hunter. No, they embodied the raw pulse of nature itself. Ice that could freeze oceans, lightning that split the sky, fire that scorched the heavens. In the original series, they loomed like living cataclysms, untamed and eternal, their cries echoing across episodes as harbingers of balance or doom. Picture the first glimpses we got back in those early Kanto days. Articuno gliding through a blizzard-swept cave, its crystalline feathers shimmering like fractured diamonds under moonlight, exhaling gales that turned rivers to glass. Trainers spoke of it in hushed tones, not as a prize to weaken and hurl a ball at, but as the embodiment of winter's merciless grip, a guardian spirit whose mere presence chilled the soul. Zapdos, crackling with electric fury, nested in storm-ravaged towers, its yellow plumage arcing with bolts that could level forests, a tempest incarnate that laughed at human defiance, and Moltres, rising from volcanic craters wreathed in ash and flame, wings unfurling sheets of fire that painted the night sky in molten oranges, a phoenix of destruction and rebirth. These weren't Pokémon you battled for experience points. The show drilled that into us with every shadowy silhouette on the horizon, every thunderclap that rattled Brock's onyx. They were deities woven into the fabric of the world, their cycles dictating seasons and storms. Disrupt one, and the skies wept or raged in response. Ash learned this the hard way during fleeting encounters, a frozen lair where Articuno's eyes pierced like icicles, or a thunderous chase where Zapdos' screech drowned out Pikachu's own thunderbolts. The scale hit you viscerally. These birds spanned horizons, their shadows eclipsing islands, reminding every viewer that Pokémon wasn't just about collection, it was about reverence. Then came the pinnacle, the story that crystallized their mythic status, the saga of Shamuti Island. Nestled in the heart of the Orange Islands, this forgotten atoll cradled secrets etched into stone by hands, long turned to dust. Ancient carvings lined its cliffs, depicting three colossal silhouettes locked in eternal dance, wings of ice clashing against lightning, fire weaving through both to forge harmony. The prophecy, passed down through generations of islanders, foretold a dire imbalance. When the birds strayed from their sacred islands, ice, lightning, and fire, the world would teeter on annihilation. Listen to the elders' voices, gravelly and wind-worn, as they recounted it in the episode. The great guardian of the sea will arise, va, they'd chant around flickering torches, to calm the wings of fire, lightning, and ice. Only a chosen one, pure of heart and unbound by greed, could return them. Retrieve the GS ball from Fire Island, calm Moltres with the sea's embrace, then guide Zapdos and Articuno back to their thrones. Fail, and the skies would boil, oceans rise, continents crack under the fury of unchained elements. The original series leaned into this with a grandeur unmatched, massive orchestral swells as storm clouds gathered, the ground trembling under the birds' approach, waves towering like vengeful titans. Ash stumbled into this legend almost by accident, washed ashore after a Lugia-summoned gale, crowned Chosen One in a ceremony of drums and feathers. But the prophecy's weight pressed down like an avalanche. Moltres erupted first, its inferno scorching the seas to steam, forcing Ash to dive into churning waters with Totodile's help. Zapdos followed, hurling tempests that uprooted palms and flung ships like toys. Articuno's icy maelstrom sealed the chaos, blizzards swallowing coastlines in white oblivion. You felt the globe holding its breath. The show's animators painted cataclysms on a planetary scale, continents visible in the roiling skies, every frame pulsing with the peril of gods at war. What elevated this beyond spectacle was the awe the series preserved. No Pokeball triumphs here. Ash didn't conquer. He mediated a spec against behemoths, his voice and will the only tether to salvation. Lugia's intervention, that colossal whale diving through thunderheads, underscored it. Even alpha legends bowed to the bird's primacy. The prophecy resolved not in battle cries, but in a fragile equilibrium, fire dimming to embers, lightning fading to sparks, ice melting to mist, as the trio wheeled back to their islands, silhouetted against a dawn that felt earned, eternal. This lore lingered, a shadow over every subsequent storm or strange weather in the series. It taught us that some powers demand respect, not ownership, their scale dwarfing Ash's badges or Brock's stew. The Orange Islands weren't filler. They were a temple to that truth, prophecies breathing life into a world where nature's fury could eclipse any trainer's dream. And as the waves lapped calm once more on Shamuti's shores, another quiet force had been shaping Ash's path from the start, one that resonated through every episode without ever stealing the spotlight. Tune in next for Chapter 16, The Voice Behind the Journey, where we uncover the hidden soul that narrated our nights and whispered the heart of Pokémon itself. As the ancient prophecies of Shamuti Island unfolded, with Ash standing as the chosen one to soothe the raging legendary birds and restore the world's fragile balance, it was the voices echoing from our television sets that truly breathed life into that epic clash. Those voices weren't just sounds, they were the heartbeat of the adventure, carrying the weight of every battle cry, every whispered doubt, and every triumphant roar across distant skies. Veronica Taylor's voice, as Ash Ketchum cut through the chaos like a determined Pikachu's thunderbolt. From the very first episode, when a 10-year-old boy from Pallet Town set out with nothing but a hat turned backward and dreams too big for his backpack, her portrayal captured something raw and unbreakable. Listen closely to those early Indigo League battles, and you'll hear it, a youthful timbre laced with grit, rising in pitch during moments of pure defiance. "I won't give up," she'd declare, her words stretching out with a stubborn resolve that mirrored Ash's unyielding spirit. It wasn't polished perfection, it was the voice of a kid who'd stumble, get back up, and charge ahead, no matter how many gym badges seemed out of reach. That never give up essence defined generations of viewers because Taylor infused Ash with an authenticity born from her own passion. She drew from the character's relentless optimism, turning simple lines into anthems. Picture the Indigo Plateau, Ash facing his rivals, his voice cracking just enough to show vulnerability before surging with fire. Her delivery made you believe he could conquer legends like Zapdos itself. Fans still quote those moments today, her inflection embedding itself in childhood memories. A sonic emblem of perseverance that propelled Pokémon from a game to a cultural phenomenon. But that voice, so integral to the journey, became the centre of a storm in 2006. When Pokémon USA took the reins from 4Kids Entertainment, the recasting decision hit like a hyperbeam out of nowhere. Veronica Taylor, after voicing Ash through 163 episodes spanning Kanto, Orange Islands, and Johto, was abruptly replaced by Sarah Natochenny. The change wasn't subtle. Fans tuning in for what became the Battle Frontier saga noticed immediately. Ash sounded different, softer edges, a more mature cadence that shifted the character's boyish fire into something steadier, almost reserved. The controversy erupted across forums, fan sites, and even early YouTube comment sections. Petitions circulated with thousands of signatures demanding Taylor's return, accusing the new regime of erasing the soul of the series. Protests at conventions turned vocal, with chants echoing her iconic lines. Why the switch? Official lines cited fresh energy for the evolving show, but whispers of contract disputes and production overhauls fueled the fire. Taylor herself spoke out in interviews, expressing heartbreak over leaving a role that had defined her career. Her voice, once Ash's, now narrating her own farewell. For purists, it fractured the continuity. The kid who'd stared down Mewtwo now sounded like he'd grown up overnight, diluting that pure never-surrender spark. Yet amid the uproar, the original cast's impact lingered like a persistent Pokémon in the wild. Rachel Lillis brought Misty's fiery tsundere edge and Jessie's theatrical villainy to life with equal flair. Her Misty voice, a perfect blend of sarcasm and hidden warmth that made every bike-joking jab land. Eric Stewart's gravelly Brock and James added brotherly reliability and comedic pomp, their chemistry with Taylor forming an unbreakable trio. These weren't mere dubs, they were performances that honoured the Japanese original, while forging an English identity all their own. The 4Kids era voices became synonymous with the golden age, their departures a bittersweet marker of how Pokémon outgrew its roots. Then there was the narrator, that steady paternal presence who wrapped every episode in a blanket of reassurance. Voiced primarily by actors like Ken Gates in those early dubs. His tone was a deliberate counterpoint to the on-screen frenzy, a warm baritone that descended like evening fog over the palette landscape. As Ash and his friends continue their Pokémon journey, tune in next time for more exciting adventures, heed in tone at fade out. His words, a ritual promise of safety. In a show filled with near misses, Team Rocket blast-offs, and heartbreaking losses, this voice provided closure, a gentle hand guiding young viewers towards sleep. Think of it after grueling gym fights or wild encounters with beasts like the legendary birds. The screen would dim, Pokémon cries fading into starry nights, and the narrator's cadence would affirm that tomorrow held more wonders, no loose ends left frayed. He embodied the world's order, much like Professor Oak's previews, but softer, more intimate. A bedtime storyteller, ensuring the journey paused, not ended. This sense of security was no accident. It mirrored the Japanese narrator's role, but amplified for Western audiences, turning potential nightmares into dreams of catching them all. That narrator's ritual became a psychological anchor, especially post-Porygon hiatus, when episodes grew gentler. Parents appreciated the non-threatening sign-off. Kids, the assurance Ash would rise again. Even in movies, his voice bridged TV to cinema, narrating stakes like Mewtwo's rage with calm authority. When recasts hit, his evolution continued seamlessly, but the original's timbre, deep, unhurried, remains etched in memory, a voice of unwavering constancy amid change. The voices of that era didn't just dub lines, they sculpted souls, turning pixels into pals and quests into quests of the heart. Veronica Taylor's Ash, defiant through every defeat, the cast's ensemble magic, the recast ripples that tested loyalties, and the narrator's soothing embrace, they wove the auditory tapestry that made Pokémon feel alive, personal, eternal. And as we reflect on those voices carrying Ash forward, prepare yourself for the tears ahead. Up next in Chapter 17, Bye Bye Butterfree and Emotional Stakes, will uncover the heart-wrenching farewell that pushed the series' feelings to new depths, leaving fans and Ash forever changed. Veronica Taylor's voice, cracked with a raw vulnerability that no script could fake, capturing Ash's unbreakable spirit right up to the moment it had to bend. In episode 21, titled Bye Bye Butterfree, that spirit faced its first shattering fracture as Ash released his very first Pokémon into the wild. A Caterpie he'd caught just days into his adventure, now evolved into a majestic Butterfree ready to chase love across the skies. Picture the scene unfolding over those open pallet town fields, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows on the grass. Ash stands there, Pokeball clutched tight in his fist, his Caterpie turned Butterfree hovering before him with wings shimmering like fresh dew on silk. It started so innocently, that little green bug tumbling out of the tall grass back in episode 3, weak and desperate, latching onto Ash like a lifeline. Ash nursed it through sleep powder mishaps and venomous battles, watching it shed its skin twice over, each evolution a quiet miracle binding them closer. But now, surrounded by a swarm of pink-winged mates drawn by Butterfree's alluring pheromones, the moment arrives unbidden. Butterfree's eyes lock on one special companion, and in that gaze, Ash sees the end of their shared path. The dialogue hits like a gentle thunderclap. Ash stammers, "Butterfree, you don't have to go," his voice, Taylor's voice, wobbling between command and plea. Misty and Brock stand silent witnesses, the air thick with the hum of wings, an unspoken loss. Butterfree turns back once, antennae quivering, before joining the flock in a spiraling dance toward the horizon. Ash calls out one last time, fist raised high, but the flock vanishes into the sunset, leaving him alone with the echo of his own shout, that single tear tracing down his cheek. It wasn't animation trickery, it was a deliberate gut punch, the kind that lodged in the throats of kids glued to their screens. This wasn't some throwaway side quest. Bye Bye Butterfree aired in 1999, smack in the heart of the original Kanto saga, and it scarred a generation. Classrooms buzzed the next day with red-eyed stories, 8-year-olds debating if Ash would ever see his Butterfree again, parents fielding questions about why letting go hurt so much. Forums lit up years later, fans confessing it as their first taste of real grief in a show built on endless triumphs. Pokémon had trained us for battles and badges, but this was the trauma of growth, the raw ache of watching something you love choose its own sky. The production team knew exactly what they were doing. They leaned into it, no fade to black cop-out, forcing us to sit with Ash's hollow stare as credits rolled. Yet that's what made the original series fearless. Unlike later seasons that clung to every companion like trading cards, Kanto dared its heroes to evolve by releasing what defined them. Ash didn't just lose a Pokémon, he confronted the truth that trainers aren't owners, they're guides. Butterfree's departure echoed the wild heart of the Pokémon world, where bonds aren't chains, but fleeting flights. The writers wove this philosophy deep into the fabric, drawing from real entomology. Butterfree's mating dance mirrored actual butterflies, dispersing after one final fervent pairing. No wonder it resonated. It taught kids that love isn't possession, a lesson wrapped in iridescent wings and farewell pheromones. This theme pulses through the entire Kanto journey, a recurring whisper of, if you love something, set it free. Think back to Pidgeotto, caught early and trained into a Sky Sentinel, only to join a massive Pidgey migration in episode 39, vanishing in a feathered exodus that left Ash waving from a cliffside perch. Primeape followed suit, punching its way to freedom after a brutal bout, galloping off with manky reinforcements, while Ash pocketed a memento badge. Even Squirtle, that helmeted firehouse hero, gets a heartfelt send-off to lead its squad, tears streaming as Ash promises future reunions. Each goodbye builds on the last, layering emotional stakes until the Indigo League feels like a crescendo of controlled chaos. These releases weren't filler, they were masterstrokes of character depth. Ash starts as a collector, Pokeballs piling up like trophies, but Kanto strips him bare, leaving just Pikachu and a core team hardened by loss. Brock lets go of his Onyx dreams for gym-leading glory. Misty grapples with her Starmie's watery independence. The show mirrored real childhood. Friends drift, pets age, hobbies fade, and in doing so, elevated Pokémon beyond battles into a tapestry of transience. Fans still pilgrimage to those episodes, re-watching Butterfree's flight as therapy for their own partings. Proof that the original series trusted us to handle the hurt. And it paid off in loyalty that spanned decades. That willingness to wound made victories sweeter, turning Ash's journey into a mirror for our own messy maturations. No sugarcoating, just the bittersweet truth. True bonds endure beyond the Pokeball. As the Kanto arc winds toward its poignant close, these departures set the stage for horizons that linger just out of reach. Up next, Chapter 18, The Eternal Sunset of Kanto beckons with mysteries of an endless dusk that redefine the region's soul. Stick around to uncover why those final rays still cast shadows over every replay. That poignant goodbye to Butterfree, with Ash standing there on the hillside, eyes fixed on the sky as his first real companion vanished into the orange glow, captured something profound about the original Pokémon series. It hurt, yes, but it also promised more horizons, more sunsets just like that one, stretching out forever. You know the feeling, don't you? That late night pull to queue up those early episodes, not for the battles or the badges, but for the way they wrap around you like a familiar blanket. The original 176 episodes of the Kanto saga, those pure, unfiltered adventures from Ash's wobbly bike ride out of Pallet Town to the smoke and cheers of the Indigo Plateau. They set the gold standard for nostalgia, precisely because they whisper rather than shout. They're not frantic, they're rhythmic, like the steady puff of Charizard's wings or the rustle of leaves in Viridian Forest at dusk. Pop them on as you're drifting off. And it's not background noise, it's a portal back to childhood summers that never quite faded. Think about how they unfold, episode by episode, without the modern polish of high-stakes arcs or endless callbacks. Ash pedals into Saffron City, fumbles through a gym battle, shares a quiet campfire laugh with Pikachu under a canopy of stars. And suddenly you're there too, the scent of pine and distant ocean salt in the air. No rush to level up the lore. Just this gentle wander through a world that breathes. It's sleep-listening perfection because the conflicts resolve soft. A lost Pokémon found by morning light. A rival's smirk turning to respect over shared ramen. That simplicity hooks deeper than any epic showdown, pulling you into a loop where every victory feels earned, every setback a soft nudge toward tomorrow. And here's where the magic truly eternalizes, the cyclical pull of it all. Ash starts at Professor Oak's lab, Pikachu sparking on his shoulder, wide-eyed and 12 years old forever. He collects those 8 badges, one glittering prize at a time. The boulder badges wait in his palm after Brock's gym, the cascade of water from Misty's Starmie echoing in Cerulean Cave. He climbs Indigo Plateau, heart pounding, as Charizard folds his wings, in defiance, and loses. Loses big, but then what? No tidy graduation, no montage of Ash hanging up his cap. Instead, the camera lingers on that sunset, over the stadium ruins, Pikachu's tail flickering like a promise, and the credits roll to that unmistakable theme. I've been waiting for a hero to save me. It's no accident. The creators wove in this endless horizon from the start. Every filler detour, the ghost of Lavender Tower moaning through fog-shrouded halls, the hot air balloon chase over the SS Anne's gleaming decks, loops back to Pallet Town's green fields. Ash returns home between arcs, Pikachu napping on the windowsill. Mum's pancakes steaming on the table, only to itch for the road again. That repetition isn't lazy writing, it's the heartbeat of Kanto. You finish episode 80, Mewtwo's shadow still looming in the back of your mind. And by episode 100, you're right back chasing Pidgey in the grass, the wheels spinning eternal. The adventure doesn't end, it sunsets and rises over and over, mirroring how we revisit these stories ourselves, night after nostalgic night. Pikachu's cheeks spark in the twilight as they bike away from another town square. Brock flipping burgers on a portable stove, Misty splashing in a stream, Team Rocket blasting off with their signature twang. Sensory echoes like that, the crunch of gravel under tyres, the salty tang of Cinnabar's volcanic shores, the hush of Snow Point's drifts bleeding into Kanto's milder winters, build layers you sink into without realising. No wonder it lulls you to sleep. It's a world calibrated for reverie, where tension simmers low and resolutions glow warm. Even the departures, like Butterfree's flight or Primeape's boxing ring farewell, feed the cycle. They sting, they teach growth, but they clear space for the next loop. Squirtle joining the squad in a spray of fireworks, Kingler pinching triumphantly after a seaside scuffle. Ash never plateaus. He circles, wiser but eternally optimistic, hat tilted just so. That structure birthed a phenomenon. Fans who, decades later, murmur along to Viridian City in the dark, not because it's groundbreaking, but because it feels like slipping into your own bed after a long day wandering. Those original 274 episodes, stretching through Orange Island's turquoise waves and back, crafted more than a show. They built a home. Pallet Town's picket fences, Oak's cluttered lab shelves, groaning with pokeballs. The perpetual dusk painting Viridian Forest in amber hues. You return, and it's waiting, unchanged, yet alive with memory. The production team's restraint, no reboots mid-run, no forced evolutions of the formula, let it marinate into something timeless. Gold, silver, and beyond would chase that spark. But Kanto's eternal sunset lingers longest, because in its glow, the journey loops unbroken. As that familiar guitar riff fades on another cliffhanger horizon, you settle deeper, knowing Ash is out there still, Pikachu at his side, ready for one more dawn. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.